How many people want to see their ex doing better once they break up? Come on, let's keep it real, people. Let's keep it real. You don't want to, at least not initially. And so seeing a portion of Dub Nation kind of celebrating Klay's early struggles with the Dallas Mavericks, I'm not surprised. I'm not, right? And I think a big part of it is a lot of frustration was built up over the last 2 seasons on how Klay acted. You heard Steve Kerr himself say Klay changed post-injury. And I think we all understood what he was battling with, right or wrong. A lot of people, myself included, were frustrated. However, I do think that there is a big difference between not wanting to see your ex do better and wanting to see your ex fail. That's different, right? And so, Klay, listen, if you're paying attention, he struggles at the start of every season. He really does. This is nothing new, but now there's a different microscope on the situation because everybody wants to see what he looks like in this Dallas uniform. And 31, listen, Reggie Miller, one of my favorite all-time players. I'm not sure if that's homage to Reggie. It does look strange. When I saw the 31, I was like, It's kind of like seeing these kickers in the NFL wearing numbers in the 30s. Like, I don't want a kicker that wears 30-something. It just don't feel right, right? I digress, though. Today's video is brought to you by BetterHelp. It's October, the fall, my favorite time of the year. Sports is booming, right? And Halloween just around the corner. What scares you, right? I think a lot of people, they love to be scared, right? And then you have the other group that don't want to be scared at all. But I think that there is also a ton of us out there that aren't really sure what scares them, right? And when you don't know what you fear, then you may not know what's holding you back because you don't know what you're afraid of, right? And I think that that's where BetterHelp can help a lot of people with their licensed therapists. And what I've found in the past, talking with somebody, it's almost like when you're looking for something around your house, you're frantically, you can't find it, you've looked everywhere, then someone walks in and finds it right in front of your nose. Sometimes you need a different perspective to figure out what's going on inside. And so if you're considering therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's flexible. It's conveniently built around your schedule. You answer a few questions, and they match you with a licensed therapist that you can switch at any time. So overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Head to betterhelp.com/alchemy and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/alchemy. When you look at the performance last night against the Clippers, no Luka, no Kyrie. 0 of 9 from the field, 0 of 6 from 3. The problem was a lot of the shots were kind of self-generated. He came off some pin downs, right? Not all of them, but about half of them were him putting the ball on the floor and trying to create a shot, and he looked sped up. That's what I saw, particularly in his release. His release looked a bit sped up, and he's probably feeling more nervous than he has in 10 years, right? There's new expectations. He wants to prove himself in this new environment to his new teammates. And when you think about Luka and Kyrie, like if you were to pick a duo of stars on a particular team that could potentially make you feel kind of insecure about your own game, it's Luka and Kyrie. They're both like spectacular talents who can create their shot wherever they want on the floor. And that was part of my initial worry for Klay was like, does he have a little bit of me too, trying to show those two like, hey, I can get mine too. I could do this too, right? Because that's kind of Klay's personality, right? Never give an inch, but the other part of me thought, okay, maybe, and I think this is what we all thought big picture was like, in this new environment, it'll be easier for him to accept a reduced role, right? So, not playing with Luka, not playing with Kyrie last night, I don't think he's going to be trying to create as many shots as we saw, at least initially, in this preseason game. And what I'd say is the same thing I always say when Klay is in a shooting slump: focus on the other things. Focus on defending, boxing out, communicating, just being a good teammate, contributing to the team overall, because in my eyes, especially as a shooter, that relieves the pressure of not making shots. When you are known as a shooter and you're in a slump, the pressure can build because that's kind of your identity, right? That's who I am. I'm supposed to make threes. I'm supposed to make shots. I'm not doing that. What else can you do then? And Klay is perfectly capable, we've seen in spurts, even post-injury, of defending and doing other things on the floor, even if it's not really his identity anymore, that's probably what he's got to start to in part make it, especially playing along those two guys. I think the other curious thing is, how does Jason Kidd handle this? Right? I'm sure he and Klay have known each other for a decade, from a distance. But we know that Jason Kidd is old school. And I think part of the reason he is the coach in Dallas is because he has, the locker room clout to speak up to a Luka, to speak up to a Kyrie and be like, hey, no, we're not doing this, right? He has that clout. He has that voice that he can do that. You bring in some smart young coach, the trendy young coaches that people are bringing in, it won't work with that roster, right? And so we know he's old school, though, in the sense of how long would he let Klay, how long is he going to let Klay struggle and play through these slumps? I think that there is definitely an amount of respect that Klay has earned through his career that Kidd's going to give him a more leeway to shoot his way out of the slump because he understands he eventually will. At the same time, you come to a Mavericks team, Klay, where it's kind of championship or bust, right? After reaching the finals and then getting swept off the floor. Did they get swept? Did they win one? It wasn't close, right? But this is a team with championship or bust expectations, so they can't afford to allow him to go through a 2-month slump. And then you look at the depth that this roster has. You've got a Najee Marshall they brought over from the New Orleans Pelicans. Spencer Dinwiddie is back with the Mavericks. Jalen Hardy is a combination guard. And even Quentin Grimes, who they got from off the Pistons quietly, is another guy that, potentially could take Klay's minutes. And so, yeah, it's interesting because what do they say? The grass isn't always greener. And Klay, at some point here quickly, may start to realize how good he did have it in Golden State. One, with Steph Curry. Steph being, an icon, a legend, a top 5 player of all time. Well, now we can get into those arguments. I probably triggered somebody, but you get what I'm saying. Never big broing him, never trying to big bro him or belittle him or make him feel like less than, right? Just that's part of Steph's, the beauty of Steph Curry is how humble he is and just letting Klay be Klay. And not just Steph, the organization, just understanding, hey, those are Klay's quirks. And we love him for it, and it's fine. And that's all he's known as an NBA player is this one organization. And so, again, he may come to realize, this is different out here in Texas, maybe in a good way at times, just a fresh environment to allow himself to change. But understand there's going to be other elements, unintended consequences of playing for a different organization and with different lead stars that maybe he hasn't realized yet. But that said, look, back to the X analogy. No, I'm not going to sit here and act like I want to see Klay ball out and lead them to a championship. But I don't want to see Klay be miserable either. I don't want to see, Klay's cooked and he's slumping either, right? Something in between. I'll be rooting for him to have his nights when it's not playing the Warriors or it doesn't affect us. But if we're neck and neck with the Mavs down the stretch with the record wise, which would probably be a good thing, yeah, I'm rooting against him. And the fan base, I encourage you, again, don't wish ill will on Klay, but I get it if you don't want to see him balling out right away. That's fine. But again, Klay always slumps to start season, so I don't think it's a big deal yet. I am curious to see the depth and how Kidd handles these slumps and how Klay handles it. Is he willing to just be a spot-up corner guy at this point? Is he truly willing to change his identity, or does he think, because you heard Kidd say, Klay, he's still a superstar. I'm not sure if that's the way to go about it, if the plan really is to have Klay accept a new role. On the flip side of things, the Buddy Hield Steph Curry relationship is fresh, right? And I think it's a whole nother vibe for Steph, right? Because Buddy has come in humble, gracious, and grateful to play with Steph Curry. You see him already taking advice from him, sitting next to him. I think his locker's next to him, right? He's just soaking up game. And what a flip from the last few years of where, it seemed as though Steph is, he's worried about his guy Klay, right? But at a certain point, it brings down the vibes of always trying to tippy-toe around Klay's ego, his slump, and making sure he's all right. And now he's got a guy who is an elite shooter in the prime of his career and is like, I'm so happy to play with you, Steph. I can't believe I'm here. I'm just excited. Share everything with me. I'm just going to try to be the best guy I can be. That's got to charge Steph up, right? And so, Buddy, to me, he's done very well of towing the line of being like a chucker, but it probably just because he's such an elite shooter, right? It's a fine line. You're a chucker if you're not that efficient, but when you shoot it like Buddy, it's like, oh, you're just a sniper, right? But as far as like shot selection and stuff, we saw him take that fall away runner out of bounds the other night, though I'm pretty sure he was falling out of bounds, so he had to throw it up. I don't think he was planning to come off that pass and shoot that. It just happened. But yeah, the shooting speaks for itself. I've been surprised how well he's been finishing at the rim when teams run him off the three-point line. He plays the glass pretty well. He gets it up high. He's got some English, more than I remember, at least in Sacramento. As far as the defense goes, we know he's not a defender. We know he's kind of undersized at the 2 spot. And the key word is put up resistance. Be in the right spots, try to make the right rotations, right? And when you get on a switch, and we've seen this thus far, when you get switched onto somebody, just put up some resistance, because that was like the biggest thing with Jordan Poole. It wasn't like, okay, it was, okay, JP, you're not a point of attack defender. Fine, so be it. But in that final year in particular, when he was really salty, he wasn't even putting up resistance. He was just a revolving door. And that brings down the morale of the team and the other 4 guys on the court, particularly. It's like, what's the point of me going hard defensively when we know there's a gaping hole that's out there not trying? And so it's early. It's a honeymoon phase for both Klay and Buddy, right? But so far in these couple preseason games, Buddy's been putting up a resistance. And so I think that the juice will be more than worth the squeeze the way he shoots the ball on the other end, so long as he keeps putting up that resistance. But yeah, we'll continue to keep a tab on Klay, and I'm rooting for his happiness. I'm not necessarily rooting for the Mavericks' success. Yeah, I'd love to see Klay go for 10 threes on a random night, right? But, it's a fine line, like it is with a lot of things, but I'm sure he will eventually get out of this slump, and I think the key for the shooting is, dude, don't stop trying to create the own shot off the bounce. And I don't think he'll have to when he's got those 2 other stars alongside him, and that percentage will grow up. And it comes in spurts with him anyway, right? He's 8 of 10, and then he's 0 of 6, right? That's how it's always been. That's how it's always going to be. But yeah, we'll continue to keep a tab on Klay here on the channel, periodically when he has big nights or as the season unfolds. As always, hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.